privately, Michael, we kind of agree, but we can't say it publicly yet in our country, but we want you to set the example. I had one particular conversation where a Eurosceptic MEP sort of was asking me, probing me about what Brexit will be like for the UK, and I said, no, you don't realise. You don't realise. We are about to get, my friend, massive competitive advantage. And he said, what do you mean? Well, on state aid, for example, on controlling our borders, on an independent trade policy. We are not doing this to stay on a so-called level playing field with the European Union. We are doing this so that our dynamic, nimble, forward-thinking democracy can really lead the way outside of the European Union as an independent country. That is a hugely exciting future and one that I and the Brexit Party are going to keep fighting for. Are you? Are you going to help us? Good. And we really do need your help because there is so much on the line with this election. We've seen now the latest from Jeremy Corbyn's Labour Party. We should all be very worried because they now have a new strategy, apparently. They're now actually going to pretend that they care about Labour Leave voters. They're going to actually pretend that they understand the concerns of all those working class people that voted Leave. After, sort of in the middle of London, in those silly little press conferences they have talking about second referendums, after months and months and months of showing they have a blatant disregard for anyone that thinks this country should respect the referendum result and leave the European Union, they're now going to pretend that they give a damn. Are people really going to believe that? Are people really going to believe that Jeremy Corbyn's...
Corbyn's sat on the fence, isn't he?
Well, these guys certainly aren't convinced, and I think you speak for all. But this so-called deal that they're talking about outside of the EU that they're going to try and push now, I mean, it means open borders. It means no independent trade policy. It means diddly squat. All it means is they're trying to take you for mugs. All it means is they're trying to keep up the pretense that they give a damn what you think. When in truth, the Labour Party has shown time and time again they only care about the interests of a small, elite, rich clique in London. And that's the truth. That's the truth that they're running away from. Well, they can run, but they can't hide. 2 weeks, the election is coming, and I think it's going to be a reckoning for Jeremy Corbyn's Labour Party. Do you?
Yes.
Good. So there are polls. There's a poll out last night that people are talking about. Frankly, I think the key in life is to keep your eyes on the prize. Laser focus must be maintained. That is what the Brexit Party is going to do. And by the way, how very proud I am to be in a party that did something truly revolutionary in British politics and actually put country before party. I was really, really proud to see our party leader, Nigel Farage, stand up in Hartlepool where he gave that speech and said, look, we are going to put the national interest first here. We're going to focus our firepower on the Remainers and on Jeremy Corbyn's Labour lot. That, I think, was a truly amazing thing to do. It was the right thing to do. And now the right thing for the country is for the Brexit Party to take the fight to Labour and get MPs elected. That's what we want to see, and that's what we're fighting for. So thank you for your support. We do have some truly fantastic candidates in this party, but you don't have to take my word for it, because you're going to hear from a few. The first one is the candidate for Hull East. Please welcome Martin Hall.
Thank you very much. I got told off last time I gave a speech for not smiling enough. I've been told that my smile's fairly scary, so I'll give it a shot anyway. There you go. My journey to the Brexit Party was brought about by the betrayal of Parliament and their confidence, that they could ignore the silent majority without repercussion. In Hull East, 72.8% of voters decided to throw off the yoke of Europe and call for our country to once again be a free and independent state. However, the likes of our Westminster elite decided they knew best. They decided that we couldn't be trusted to freely govern ourselves and that we needed to be given another opportunity to make the right decision. Well, that's not how we play the game. You don't get to keep changing the rules after you've lost, and you don't get to keep playing the game until you win. The United Kingdom voted to leave, and that is what we must do. I've been asked on many occasions to justify leaving the EU or to describe what the benefits of leaving will be for the people of Hull East. In response, I've talked about taking back control of our territorial waters and rebuilding our fishing industry decimated so many years ago. Or I describe how controlling migration will drive up wages of low-skilled jobs and improve lives. But what they're really trying to do is get us lost in the detail, rather than what is actually at stake, which is democracy, the very fabric of our society. It's the glue that binds nearly 70 million individuals together and allows us to live in relative harmony and peace, current events excluded, obviously. Refuse to implement the result of the greatest democratic vote in recent times, and you would disenfranchise a whole generation of people for the future. Make them think that our governmental system is not working for them, and you create a class of people disengaged from society and bring about the subsequent issues of antisocial behaviour and petty crime that come because the rules no longer matter. So who in Hull is actually listening? It's not Labour. Carl Turner has voted against leaving at every juncture. What about the Liberal Democrats? Their plans are to rewrite history and revoke Article 50, so I don't think so. And what about the Conservatives? Well, I'm happy to go for a beer with Boris, but I don't think you can trust him to keep any of his promises. That leaves us, the Brexit Party. We are listening, and we are intent on giving those people currently directionless much-needed leadership. Leadership in delivering a proper, full-blooded, red-meat Brexit. One that brings back our independence, brings back our sovereignty, and one that we can be proud of in years to come. But also leadership in showing the way forward, in the way we rebuild trust in politics, breaking down those barriers that have been created between Parliament and the people, where sovereignty truly lies, by creating a system where every vote counts and where everyone matters. On the home front, Hull East is crying out for policies that will give hope to those failed by the current system. Policies such as the introduction of a new workable apprenticeship scheme that will give a future to young people who do not want to go to university. Investment in strategic industries that will create meaningful jobs for people who just want to provide for their children with a level of certainty that they will have a job next year. Together we can provide those opportunities and instill hope in the future. Together we can put MPs in Parliament that respect the electorate and values their input. And together we can provide real change, not just to everyday lives, which will be good enough, but also change the way politics is done for good. Let's get away from the business as usual politics, the safe seat way of doing things. No seat should ever be safe. An MP should feel the cold, hard stare of the electorate every day and should not be sheltered from it. They should know what their electorate are thinking, not just the ones who voted for them or hold membership cards of that particular party, but the average man or woman in the street that Parliament's decisions affect every day. From my experiences around the world, I've seen what binds people together and what makes them an engaged citizen who feels valued, and that is a political process that works, that respects its voters and which is beyond corruption. People begin to feel pride in their country, which permeates into a sense of civic duty. People become more engaged at every level to work together towards a better society. I've been serving and protecting my country and community for nearly 30 years. I take great pride in our country and the good work we do around the world, and how we are a beacon of hope to oppressed people who wish they had what we have. But they don't see the threat to our country that I do, which has been caused by a Parliament arrogantly ignoring the electorate for 3.5 years. Now it's time for me to step up once again into a different battleground, one where the rules are slightly different and the tools are slightly less definitive. But step up I will. Let's work together to engage those lost tribes of the political wilderness and bring them back into the fold and give them their country back. Let's work together to change politics for good and bring about a proper Brexit. Thank you.
Isn't he great? Yeah. These are the type of people we need in Parliament, are they not? Yeah. Good. Now, I did mention our group of MEPs. MEPs earlier. And there's one lady you're about to hear from who I certainly wouldn't mess with, and I don't think too many people would. One of the litmus tests, I think, for Brexit is the way that we reignite and bring back our fishing industry that's been decimated by the European Union. Yeah. When it comes to this issue, there's only one woman you need to listen to, June Mummery, MEP. Yeah.
Thanks for such a warm welcome. So, my name is June Mummery and I am a fisheries campaigner, member of the European Parliament for the East of England and member of the Fisheries Committee. When looking around this fantastic city, there is evidence of fishing's greatness everywhere. From the murals celebrating the achievements of Lillian Bolocka and the headscarf revolutionaries to the memorials to the city's lost fishermen and St Andrew's fish docks on the A63. Hull's rich fishing industry is ever present. This city once was home to generations of fishing industry workers. It is still filled with memories of those salty old sea dogs and their families. One can still feel the spirit of the three-day millionaires, the hard-working men who came ashore briefly to spend their money between trips. We still remember the courage of the 1,243 British fishermen from Hull and other coastal communities, towns and villages who lost their lives feeding this great nation through 2 world wars. Thank you. We admire the legacy of people like Lillian Bolocka, who stood up and led a revolution in safety for fishermen by campaigning tirelessly for the improved safety in the fishing fleet. While the spirit of fishing is a much-loved part of this city, there is little of its past success that remains today. Hull, like many former fishing ports around the UK, has seen a gradual decline in fishing. Instead of bustling streets and vibrant local economies, we have crumbling infrastructures and social issues. The fishing industry once offered opportunities that were the lifeblood of communities like that on Ethel Road. Yeah. However, the heartbreaking fact is that the economic depression has overtaken hope. Loneliness has become a new way of life. Many young people have no choice but to seek employment elsewhere, moving away from their homes and their loved ones at a young age. Yet many London-centric politicians and media refuse to acknowledge the value of the fishing industries to port cities like Hull. While fishing's share of GDP may not look much when compared to the billions raked in by the financial sector, it's critically important to coastal communities. Time and time again, we hear Remainers belittling the fishing industry. Fishing is nothing compared to the motor industry, or whatever comparison they choose. We no longer have the infrastructure. We haven't got the demand for the fish. We don't have processing facilities. Who will buy the fish? It's all utter claptrap. Thank you. The fact is, the fishing industry is vital to the economic success of coastal communities. It will inject skilled jobs, opportunities, income and pride. In my experience, the majority of people want the simple things in life. To leave school, to find a job, fall in love, get married and raise a family. Fishing will provide for all of those things. For every job created at sea, another 8 skilled jobs are created on land. If we get the Brexit we voted for, it will build fishing into a sustainable force once more. The simple wants I just outlined are within a hand's reach. Hope will overtake the depression. Places like Ethel Road will thrive with economic activity once more. It is merely a case of giving the people the tools to do the job. So how do we do it? We need people in power who will help me in fighting for the fishing industry. As we saw with Michelle's fantastic win on The Apprentice, she has a determination to succeed and the ability to excel. Derek, alongside Martin, I have no doubt they will be a great asset to Hull. We need more people in Parliament who will work towards bringing about the projected 100,000 skilled jobs nationally and the 6.4 billion net to plate value of a reclaimed fishing industry. For some time now, I have also been spearheaded by an expert team in putting together a plan to bring fishing back to the UK. After being headhunted by a former director of DEFRA, the renaissance of East Anglian fisheries, REEF, is a project which has taken over 2 years to design and publish and was recently launched and discussed in Westminster. REEF takes a fresh approach on how to rebuild the fishing industry. It not only supports the catching and processing side of the business, but also accounts for the infrastructure, aquaculture, and even the leisure angling aspects of fishing. Tourism will also see a boost from the REEF project. As a comprehensive joined-up strategy, it even ensures fish stocks are managed correctly. But crucially, REEF is designed to act as a blueprint for the rejuvenation of all coastal fishing communities. However, the success of REEF hinges on one thing: Brexit and the UK's exit from the EU's common fisheries policy. Thank you. The bad news is that the Prime Minister's New Deal has changed little from the withdrawal agreement put forward by Theresa May. For fishing, Boris Johnson's deal is nearly identical to Theresa May's, and to me, this could signal a second betrayal of the fishing industry. Although I hope I'm wrong. The new agreement locks us into the common fisheries policy until the end of 2020. It also provides for a possibility of further extension and funnels us towards associate membership of the common fisheries policy in the long term. On the other hand, like my leader, Nigel Farage, I am greatly encouraged by Boris Johnson's recent commitment to a Canada plus free trade agreement. However, a free trade agreement cannot come at any price, and we must ensure, as Canada did, that we protect our fishing grounds as part of any deal. But unfortunately, there are already rumblings from the EU that a free trade agreement would only be granted by giving up our fishing waters. They do, my love, they do. The Prime Minister's withdrawal agreement and the political declaration indeed allows for such a scenario. The recently released Conservative Party manifesto also gives little reassurance to struggling fishers. Despite stating that we will have full control of our seas, there is no commitment to reclaiming the 80% of fish caught in British waters by EU vessels. There is also no mention of recovering and protecting the UK's exclusive economic zone. And there is very little detail other than vague promises to support coastal and rural communities. What is the use of being in full control of the seas if politicians give away our fish to other EU countries? We are wearing the crown and throwing the diamonds and rubies back into the sea for somebody else. Without an absolute commitment to reclaiming our waters, establishing and protecting our exclusive economic zone and protecting returned quota in law, all other promises are meaningless. With Michelle in Parliament and your other two wonderful PPCs, holding the Prime Minister account on Brexit, coupled with a tailor-made version of REEF, we can reclaim an industry that has thrived for thousands of years on the UK's coastline. We will put pride back into our communities. Thank you. As the saying goes, give a man a fish and he'll eat for a day. Allow a man to fish and he'll eat for a lifetime. We have the vision, we have the will, we have the determination, and we have a plan. The UK section in the North Sea belongs to every one of you sitting here today. It's our back garden, and we want it back. Thank you, thank you, thank you very much.
Well done. I told you I wouldn't mess with her. But isn't that what we need? We need fighters for our country, people who are willing to stand up and not roll over. After all, just think what has gone on in Westminster. MPs have looked at the biggest democratic vote in the history of our country and said, don't like that, not going to respect that, going to try and overturn that. Do you think the Brexit Party are going to stand by and let that happen? I'm not going to let it happen, June's not going to let it happen, and neither is our next speaker, who I know is working his socks off in Great Grimsby. Give it up for Christopher Barker.
Well, hello, Hull. It's great to be back here. I was born and brought up in this voting region of what our European lords and masters imperiously call Yorkshire and the Humber, and I was proud to fight here as one of our MEP candidates in the recent European elections in May. So it's great to be back with you. I'm also our PPC, I'm also our prospective Brexit Party MP over in Grimsby. Thank you, ma'am, thank you. My friends, this is a critical and a really important election. It's no longer just about right and left. It's become, hasn't it, about right and wrong. It's become about competence. It's become about trust. And there are a few seats, a few constituencies in the country where this battle is taking place. Mine in Grimsby is one of them, and the ones around here in Hull are others of them. How can it be, can we ask, how after 3.5 years ago we were promised and we had a referendum, which our Prime Minister David Cameron offered us, and promised that his very government would enact the result. How can it be? And then all our major parties went to Parliament in 17, didn't they, with a manifesto promising to uphold the result. And over 80% of our MPs went on a personal manifesto to do the same. How can it be, my friends, that we end up now in late 2019 with a Labour Party which, after 74 years in power in Grimsby, my area, is now offering the people a choice between Remain and a form of Remain that's worse than Remain, and which even the Labour leaders will not say who, if any, would actually campaign among their leadership for it. How can this be? And how can it be that our Tory party on the opposite side of the House is trying to fool the people of Grimsby, fool the people of our nation, that the withdrawal agreement that they've negotiated, accepted, is remotely what the people asked for, what they voted for, and what they promised to enact. You know, I have listened to hundreds of views, of opinions, of reasons around the good town of Grimsby why people voted to leave. And I can honestly tell you that not one of them is served by the withdrawal agreement that the Tories are trying to serve up. What that agreement says is three things. It says we pay. No. It says we stay under European control. And it says we give it all away. We give away our fishing rights. We give away control over our taxation. We give away control over the tariffs we need to drop in order to attract trade to our port. We give away control over our laws. We give away the right to make free trade deals as a sovereign nation. We give away control over our jobs and our employment policy. My friends, that's not right, and it's not what the people voted for. And how can it be? That I struggle to get the words out of my mouth. The Liberal Democrats, the illiberal demagogues, are now facing the electorate with a straight face in open contempt of our democratic process. They're insulting the majority by having a simple policy: we're going to overturn your will, your vote. They're insulting Remainers with the whole attitude that, look guys, you the public, doesn't matter what you vote, doesn't matter what you believe, because if in power, we're going to do what we believe anyway. And do you know what? They're insulting our intelligence by calling themselves Democrats, aren't they? But, my friends, it's not just about Brexit. It's about so much more than Brexit. Imagine how the people of Grimsby, how the people of Hull, how the people of our nation are going to feel after this whole political period and this election, which has been defined by the issue of our shared democracy. How are they going to feel if the majority will isn't followed? How can we hope as a nation to resolve our next differences peaceably at the ballot box if our elected representatives won't respect the score of the last vote? And imagine if we should get a majority Tory administration without the harnessing that they need to keep them honest. If we, the British people, are told, well, we've got 3 more years of this negotiations, we can't even predict when the end of that's going to be. How are people going to feel when they're told, we can't enact the laws that you want, the laws you may now vote for at our national Westminster Parliament? We can't trade as we see fit. We can't control tax. We can't control our state aid policies, do what we want to in neighbouring Scunthorpe. We can't control our fishing. How are they going to feel when they're told we cannot trade freely as a sovereign nation with the rest of the world that we want to share and participate in because we're subject to EU laws, laws of that very EU that we will technically have left. And we're subject to new EU laws that Brussels is entitled to bring in during a transition period with no vote, no voice, no veto for you and me, the British people. How are we going to feel? How are we going to feel if we're not free to decide our own laws? Because we've agreed in a preceding treaty, the one Boris would have us sign right now in place of the Lisbon Treaty, that the European, that's foreign, Court of Justice can force our British judges to overturn laws that are voted for by you and me. How are we going to feel? How are we going to feel when we say, well, let's quit the treaty? And we're told, I'm sorry, we signed it without an exit clause. How are we going to feel if we say, well, don't worry about that, we'll go to international arbitration? And we're told, I'm sorry, we agreed in the treaty, remember the one in January 2020 perhaps, that the ECJ would be the arbiter of any future disagreements between the UK and rump EU. How are we going to feel when there's continuing resentment with our European friends and partners, which should be a relationship of friendship, of trust, of common interest, of trade and cooperation, of mutual interest, of opportunity for all of us? How can we possibly unite our society if we can't trust the control that we as the people have over our democracy? How can we move forwards as a nation if we were to accept Labour's solution, the Lib Dems' solution, or the imprisonment of Boris's unamended withdrawal agreement? Well, I'm with you, ma'am, and we have to ask, well, how did it come to this? How did we, this great democratic nation, get to this state? I have to tell you, it's about people, and most things in running an organisation are about people. It's about the people, my friends, that we elect, because over the last 3.5 years, and that's just been the most recent chapter, they have ignored us, they've conspired against us, they've undermined us, and they've tried to overturn the result of our vote. And there are 2 problems really here. They've lacked the principle. We have a culture, a political culture lately, I believe it's the last 2, perhaps 4 decades, where our political class lack the principle to stand up for what they say, mean it, and then stick with their principles above personal interest and above party allegiance. And the other thing that we lack is experience in our politicians outside the little political game, and whether you're coming in through journalism, through party support, to an advisory role, to a councillor, or whether you're coming from a unionist role into one seat and then slipped into another. There's way too much about party allegiances, way too much about nepotism, and not remotely enough about principles. So we have compliant MPs who are bending with the party whim, who, once we voted them back in 2017, and your constituencies right here are very similar in voting record to mine in Grimsby, they voted again and again to frustrate Brexit in all manner of ways, and even not to leave at all. And some of these MPs typically Labour Remainer MPs, like mine in Grimsby, that sometimes voted tactically in order to absent themselves from Parliament on the day of a critical vote, or to abstain in order that they weren't tarnished by their party leadership with their own voting record. Do you see how it works? And it's true of our leaders too. The whole system's been poisoned. So Boris, for example, on the very first day he took power, having been elected after Theresa May, let drop on the very steps of Downing Street that he wasn't going to rewrite Theresa May's abysmal deal with an alternative of walking away. No, he was just going to remove, or which he hasn't even properly done, the Northern Irish backstop. And also that we wouldn't be free, as he revealed then, to make our own laws, which is what he'd led the nation, not to mention that Tory party, that they'd be able to do after 31st October. No, we'd come out after some reasonable period. You see how it works?
Yeah.
And then our government's setting up our negotiations to fail. You and I know that if we're going to achieve something, we need to put around us a team who believes in the mission. But our government surrounded the leader with a Remainer cabinet, with a Remainer ruling party, with Remainer negotiators. Didn't stand a chance of doing a fair deal for the British people or enacting your will. You and I know that we don't hand over the keys until the whole deal's done, but in a variety of ways, first of which was accepting sequencing, accepting we'd agree what we'd owe before we'd agree what we got for it. You and I wouldn't do that.
No.
You and I know that the deal's not over until both sides agree. But the whole dynamic of we'll take no deal off the table, we'll weaken our nation's hand by promising the other side we ain't going to leave without a deal, so you name your terms, adding unnecessary preconditions. You see how it works?
Yes.
And it's actually the whole class of our Remainer Parliament that's frustrated the very process that we charged them at the last two elections with enacting, by taking no deal off the table, by doing backroom deals within Parliament to frustrate the will of the people, by passing motions to take executive powers that should be with our nation, with our government, to do trade deals on the nation's behalf, both to the foreign European Commission and into the Parliament itself. Even the Speaker, that servant of our Parliament, passed himself up as a representative of it in having backroom conversations with his counterpart in the European Parliament, David Sassoli. Do you see how it works? And even in this election over the river in Grimsby, I'm seeing how the legacy parties have dropped their principles in order to hang on to power, how the Tories are standing, as we all know, in seats where they don't even stand a chance, so putting party above the principle and above their alleged promise that we leave as the people require. How Labour are playing with Project Fear, with fantasies about companies not wanting to trade with companies of other nations, which we always have done, all nations of the world do, and everybody will continue to do, with fears preying on the people of Grimsby at their most vulnerable, unfounded fears, blaming uncertainty, my friends, on Brexit, when we all know that from economic uncertainty to currency risk to people's worries about getting visas to come to stay in our country when we need the jobs. It's not about Brexit. It's about the event of postponing Brexit. I feel it's a national disgrace that today's Labour Party stands aside when working jobs for working people and working towns are being so lost on its wash, and it looks the other way. And the Tories then can try to confuse us all with splitting the vote. We know that what they mean is their entitled Tory vote. We know that the Leave vote was a vote to leave the control of the European Union, which is precisely what they're trying to frustrate. We know that the vote for Leave is now honestly only for the Brexit Party. You see how it works?
Yeah.
Is it any wonder then that the last three Tory leaders have not gone through with what we voted for? So in constituencies like ours, where we have the choice, are we going to vote for another Tory to represent us?
No.
Well, over in Grimsby, I'm sorry to have to tell you that there is only one party candidate standing in this election who voted to leave, and that's me, the Brexit Party. There's only one who's not trying to trash the vote of the 71%. There's only one whose instincts are those of the people that we all care about. There's only one who didn't go into politics for a career, but instead brings real-world experience to getting the job done and getting it done properly and getting it done honestly. Because in a town built on trade, in a nation that's grown through trade, we need an MP who gets trade. There's only one who has the backbone to stand up to a potential majority Tory administration and say, no, that's not what the people voted for, and it's not what you promised. This far and no further. There's only one who can realistically strengthen a Brexit Parliament. So if we learn anything from the events, my friends, of the last few years, whatever our ideal ultimately about Brexit, we need to be able to show ourselves, we need to be able to show our children that our democracy is worth fighting for and that you can have what you vote for. And I truly shudder about the future of our nation if our children can't have that confidence. And there is only one way to add strength to a Brexit Parliament. And in constituencies like ours, that's to vote for the only candidate whose instincts and whose natural vote was to leave in the first place.
Right.
So we have an opportunity in these constituencies to do the right thing, secure our democracy, and also to secure the positive and outward-looking, confident future that we in the nation deserve.
Yes.
We need to change politics for good. We need to support the Brexit Party in this election. Thank you.
Well done. You know, as a relatively new party, it's amazing what the Brexit Party has done. And I just love, there's several things I love about the party. One of the things, sir, is the passion. Can I just borrow you a second? Look at this guy here. We've got the scarf, we've got the rosette, we've got the badge, and we've got the whole City Tigers on there. I just love it. I just love it. And I think I know a lot of people watch this stuff on streaming online, so it's just good to see the passion in the room. And of course, the other thing I love about this party is the range of candidates. And there's no doubting the superstar that this city has standing. No longer the apprentice. In fact, if she's in Parliament, I think she's going to teach MPs a hell of a lot about how to fight for a cause, how to stand up for the people, how to believe in democracy, and how to push forward a new agenda for our country. Please give a huge, warm welcome. She's the candidate, and I was told the pronunciation, Hull West and Hessel, Michelle Dewberry.
Good. Now, in 2017, I said never, ever, ever again. And what I was referring to was, as some of you will remember, and I know I can see in this room, some of you were actually helping me, I stood as an independent candidate in that election. And the reason that I stood was, as a Brexiteer, I felt even then that I had no real option of who to vote for. I felt completely politically homeless, and I decided to do something about it. I stood as an independent. We had some fantastic support here in Hull and in Hessel, and we came fourth. People say that was a terrible outcome. I disagree. I feel very proud of what we achieved with the team that we had and the time that we had, but it was a terrible experience. We were bullied left, right and centre, predominantly only by Labour, hardcore Labour activists who would make it clear to me at every single twist and turn that apparently I was not welcome in this city because I was challenging Labour. I had the audacity to challenge Labour in this city, and we were given hell. It was awful. And in this city, we are dominated by a monopoly of Labour power. Your MPs, the majority of the council, the mayor, the police and crime commissioner, Labour is everywhere. And after 2017, I said, you know what, let them get on with it. If that's what they want, no more. And the abuse for me, I don't mind admitting it, it was too much. Then this election got called, and I sat there and I thought to myself, what am I going to do? Did I really mean that no more, never again? Or do I actually feel even more strongly in my conviction that Brexit is the right thing, that democracy has to be followed through, and that actually I still felt a sense of political disconnection? And I said that yes, that is exactly how I felt. So now, this election, I felt that I had no choice but to stand up again and to put myself forward for you, the people of Hull West, people of Hessel, and for this city. Because I believe in this city, and I believe in democracy, and I believe that if a government of the day offers its people a referendum with just 2 terms and conditions attached, one is, here is your question, the majority wins, point 1, and point 2, we will implement what you decide. I think it is fundamentally wrong that that then is ignored. And even if you're a Remainer watching or listening to this today, and you're sitting there thinking, yeah, cancel Brexit, what I would say even to you guys is you should be concerned about the principle of democracy. Because even if you disagree with Brexit, which clearly I don't, I believe strongly in Brexit, but even if you're a Remainer who disagrees with it, you should ask yourself, are you really comfortable living in the kind of society where the government can present you with a choice and a question and then blatantly ignore you because they do not like the answer? Yeah. And I will tell you, so to any Remainers watching this, you should be concerned, because today it's Brexit they're trying to ignore us on. What will it be tomorrow? Ignoring democracy is an incredibly slippery slope. Yes. We must avoid it. So that is the first reason that I'm standing, because I passionately believe in it. The second reason that I'm standing is because, as I've referenced, the power, the monopoly of power in this city, we're working class people and we're born and bred to believe that Labour is for us. We almost don't question it. Sometimes we just almost robotically vote for Labour because our dad did. Our granddad did, and we're working class, and to try and vote for anywhere else would be disloyal at best. But let me tell you, and let me make it absolutely clear, the Labour Party that is standing today, it is not the party that your dad, your granddad voted for. So my message to Labour supporters who are watching this is please reconsider your choice. The plans that Labour are coming out with, whilst I am sure they have good intentions, they will be disastrous for this country, absolutely disastrous. I have decades of experience in business, and it's all well and good talking about protecting jobs. You can only protect jobs if you have businesses that are thriving, expanding and developing, and many of Labour's policies will really, really hurt business. So please, advance if you want to advance with Labour with absolute caution, and please reconsider, challenge your thought process if you're someone who is going to vote Labour in this election because your dad and your granddad did. They will let you down, and they will continue to ignore people like us, and it is not acceptable. The other reason that I want to stand is I am passionate about the North. I've been passionate about the North since way before it was trendy to pretend you're passionate about the North in order to win an election. Yeah. And you may have seen, there was a report in the newspapers just yesterday. It was called The State of the North 2019. In this report, it outlined regional discrepancies. And it stated very clearly in there that Hull, this city, has a higher mortality rate than Slovakia and Romania. That is wrong. For too long, we are and have been ignored. We have this centralisation of power in Westminster. They don't care about places like Hull. They suddenly have started pretending that they do, as I've said, because there is an election. And what you are seeing, now that we're in an election mode, is parties are promising everything. They are promising everyone everything in order to secure their vote. And it is nonsense. You have to look at these main parties and ask yourself, if you truly care about the North, if you truly do, then why on earth does the North have such discrepancy to the South? We have lower economic output, lower job prospects, and as I've just described, lower mortality rates than Romania and Slovakia. Enough now. And if you elect me, I promise you, I will fight for the North, as I am on record for having done for years and years and years. And just yesterday, I was having a conversation with someone who I think is in the room, so I won't point him out. And we were talking about the old, there's a big department store in town, and it's just closed down and is now being talking about getting redeveloped as like a nice, trendy eatery place. I turned around and said, wouldn't it be good for the city if you had, I don't know, somewhere like a John Lewis or somewhere? It's just a flippant comment that I made. The response that I got back is, no, John Lewis wouldn't work here. Why is that? And he said, because we don't have the money here. We just have lots of low-paying jobs. Yeah. Do you know how wrong I find that this city is okay with accepting that that's just the way it is? That it's just the way that it is, that you will accept the scraps, that you will be comfortable with low-paying jobs, that you will be comfortable with industries not taking Hull as a proper, serious place to base their operations and expand from. Because business needs to be encouraged in this city. People need to be encouraged to be as entrepreneurial as they desire in this city. And any success that is created within this city or from people inside of it must be celebrated, not mocked and not knocked, because ambition and entrepreneurial drive and small business will be the lifeblood of this city going forward. I'm going to make a couple more very brief points. The first one is to talk about the polls. There are polls in this election, and you will see that they are basically saying that we stand no chance in this election. Not true. Thank you to the young man at the back. You said it more clearly than what I could. Not true. We are the underdogs in this election. Of that, there is no doubt. But we have an opportunity. And we have a chance. And I am getting told the Tories will take the Brexit vote. The Tories will take the Brexit vote. Anybody who understands the working class cities like Hull will understand that is not going to happen. In my constituency, Hull West and Hessle, it has never once been Tory, not once, never even close. So to all of you who are suggesting they're trying to manipulate the polls, they're trying to spread false rumours about us in order to detract support from us, one such example being the NHS. We are dogged with rumours that if you elect us, a vote for us will be a vote to privatise the NHS. It is a lie. It is not true. Never would I vote for privatisation of the NHS. Our party's policy is to protect the NHS. And you must not allow people to try and manipulate and tell you that we are standing for things that we simply are not, because it is lies. So I will finish here on the point that I've just touched upon. All I ask from anybody watching this and in this room today, you know what Labour rule looks like, and you know how much Labour has ignored you. I don't care what else they go on to do in this city. It's built on a foundation of disregard for us voters, and that is not acceptable. So what I would ask is that I want people to trust us once, give us one shot, get us into Parliament, let us show you what we can do for you. We want to put you first. We want to give you the voice that you've not previously had, because politics is broken. Politics needs people like us who are not career politicians to step up, get a hold of this, and actually make change happen. But there is only one way, and this is the final point I will leave you with. There is only one way that we can make this happen. If we are to show these pollsters that they are wrong, if we are to say to Labour, get out of these seats. But there is only one way we can do that. The only way that we do that, it's not by saying, oh, politics is broken and they didn't listen to me, so I'm not going to vote this time. That's not the way. It's not the way by saying, oh, I'm not really sure, so I won't vote. It's not the way by saying, oh, well, everyone, I know votes Labour, I will. It's not the way of saying, well, I don't mind Boris Johnson, so maybe I'll go Tory. No. The way that we're going to sort this city out is by electing us, by giving us the choice, giving us the chance to make things happen. But we can only do it in one simple way. And that is, we all need to come together. Because attending rallies is excellent. Having intentions is excellent. But it's about the action that we take. It's about coming together as a team, about actually lending our support, our time. We have only 2 weeks left to go. 2 weeks, 14 days to make a difference, because this is our chance and this is our shot. And if we don't come together, and I mean come together, we need to be on these streets of Hull and Hessle. We need to be knocking those doors. We need to make sure that every single voter has heard of us. They understand who we are. They understand what we're about. And they understand why they should choose us on December the 12th. And to achieve that, I ask every single person in this room and watching this stream, get out and support your Brexit Party candidate. Please, I beg you, I want us into Parliament, I believe in us, and I truly believe that we can make change happen, but we can only do it together. Thank you.
Isn't she great? Yeah. And apparently I got my Hessle right, so that's even better. Now, thank you very much for coming. It's been great. All the media. Oh no, sorry. There is one more speaker you're going to hear from. There is just one more. I'm sure you'll have heard of him. I'm sure you'll have seen him before. But let's just see a quick bit of what he's been doing around the country with this video.
2015 general election. I came to Doncaster and I went to a working man's club. It was a Tuesday afternoon. About 300 yards down the road from the working man's club was Ed Miliband's constituency office. So I said to the bloke that ran the club, oh, you must see Ed Miliband quite regularly in here. And he said, no, Ed Miliband has never been in. And it was the first time I'd realised that Ed Miliband and these London Labour politicians who represent northern constituencies literally would not be able to have a normal conversation with their constituents, that it's a Labour Party of Dalston, not a Labour Party of Doncaster, and that actually they've just been able for decades to take you all for granted. And that was then. But let's fast forward to this general election. A Labour Party who promised us during the referendum, after the referendum, and in their general election manifesto of 2017, the Labour Party promised us at all of those moments they would respect the result of the British people and implement it. Well, what do they want to do? They want you to vote again.
This takes me back a bit because I used to trade this stuff. And I used to trade with cable companies in the UK who hedge their forward price, and this is now the only factory in the UK where you'll see copper cable being made. All the rest of it's gone overseas, much of it inferior quality product.
I think it's fair to say that Labour have literally betrayed their own voters and broken their promises, but not just on the specific issue of Brexit.
Please welcome to the stage, Nigel Farage.
Good morning, Hull. Great to be here with our excellent team of candidates. Great to hear you all in such good voice and with such passion. Now, 25 years ago today, on the other side of the North Sea, there was a referendum in a country called Norway. And they voted for the second time not to join the European Union. 25 years ago today, the Norwegians made that decision. And there are some big lessons that we can learn from that vote and how politicians react to referendum results. The main reason the Norwegians did it is because they, under international law, just as we, under international law, are entitled to 200 miles of the North Sea, and all the fish that swim within that 200 miles are the economic resource, exclusive economic resource of the Norwegians. And the Norwegians have a huge, thriving commercial fishing industry. They also have a huge, thriving tourist angling industry as well. And what do we have in Hull and Grimsby? Virtually nothing. And the lesson we must learn from that Norwegian vote is that only by leaving the European Union, but only by doing it properly, can we get back what is ours. Can you imagine 200 miles of the North Sea being ours? Can you just think of how many thousands of well-paid jobs that would bring back to Hull and Grimsby and the whole of the east coast of this country? But of course you won't hear that from the Labour Party, even though they've represented these constituencies basically since the end of the First World War. Labour haven't had to worry about these seats because they've been able to take them for granted, knowing that they're going to get voted in the next time around. But something big has changed, and it's this. It's Brexit. These constituencies, this is the heart of Leave country. The heart of Leave country. 70% plus in many of these seats voted Brexit 3.5 years ago. And have you changed your minds? That's the question. Well, there you are. No, I know. And there are lots of people in these constituencies who voted Remain, who say that was my decision at the time. But if we're to be a democracy, that result actually has to be delivered. So people haven't changed their minds, and yet the Labour Party, which is, I would suggest, one now that reflects more the thinking of Hampstead than it does of Hull, a North London intellectual, globalist, politically correct, metropolitan elite party, and they now want you to vote again because, don't shake your head, you didn't know what you were voting for in the first place, all right? You're all very stupid, very ignorant. I can see you're all pig ignorant. And the people in Hampstead know better than you. So you've got to vote again. And the choice is it's all been outlined beautifully. Diane Abbott did it. I tell you what, if she loses her seat, she's not going to become a mathematics professor anywhere, is she? But, she said, the Labour government will campaign for a New Deal, then put it to a referendum of the British people, and then she'll campaign against the deal negotiated by her own government. I mean, you just couldn't make it up, could you? No. But effectively, they want to give you a choice of Remain against Remain. Yeah. And it is a complete and utter betrayal of what people voted for. Yeah. It is a breach of all the promises they made, including in their 2017 manifesto, which incidentally also said that free movement of people with Europe would end when we leave the European Union, And now we have a Labour Party whose conference want them to extend free movement, not just to European countries, but to much of the rest of the world. And I think London has forgotten that one of the reasons we voted Brexit in such huge numbers is we absolutely want to have control of our borders and to make sure the numbers of people coming into this country are at a sensible number and not 250,000 or 1/3 people every single year. Net migration is too high. It puts way too much pressure on communities, way too much pressure on public services, and we voted to get back to normality. Not to close the door completely. We want immigration, but we want the right amount of immigration, not excess immigration. And Labour have also, I think, betrayed people on that. But the lesson from Norway is clear. Whilst they voted not to join the European Union, and they did manage to keep their fisheries, but their politicians decided that despite that vote, they would take them into the European single market. So you hear, Norway have to accept EU laws without having any say. That was done in direct contravention of how the Norwegian people voted. That was, in effect, the politicians saying, well, we're honouring what you voted for, we're honouring it, but we just think for economic reasons it would be better if. So the idea that a referendum result can be twisted is nothing new. So here's my fear. My fear is that the Conservative Party, and all right, we did our best. I mean, the Brexit Party got rid of Theresa May. Yeah. I think in that we did a national service. But we could finish up like Norway. We could finish up with a Conservative Party that says it will honour the result of the referendum under Boris Johnson, all right? Give us Brexit, but the danger is that it's Brexit in name only. The danger is that he gives away fishing as part of the negotiations. But that's the danger. The danger is we finish up aligned on everything from financial services to fisheries. Now look, we have pushed Boris Johnson a very long way in the course of the last few weeks. He made some big statements just ahead of this general election. Can't imagine why, can you? But somebody has to hold Boris Johnson to account, or they will do to us what happened to the people of Norway, and they will still be far too closely linked to the institutions of the European Union to genuinely be an independent, self-governing nation. And the argument here in Hull and in many of these northern constituencies is that the Conservative Party have never won these seats. The Conservative Party will never win these seats. And we have to explain to people that if they vote Conservative in Hull, not only is that a wasted vote, but they are splitting the Brexit vote, and they've got to vote tactically. They've got to get behind our candidates, because if we get them into the House of Commons, Boris will not be able to break his promises, will not be able to do what the Norwegians did to their people, because we'll be there and they'll know that huge support would hemorrhage to us virtually overnight. So this election, this election is not about whether we get Brexit, it's about whether we actually leave the institutions of the European Union. That's what this election is all about. Corbyn is bombing, I'm pleased to say, all over the Labour constituencies. I thought in Hull you might like IRA sympathisers. Perhaps I got that wrong. That's what people say to me. That's what people say to me on the streets. People say to me on the streets, I served in the forces. This guy was consorting with the IRA when our people were being killed in Northern Ireland. That actually is how people feel in many of these towns and cities. He's bombing. Boris is almost certainly going to get a majority. That means we will get a form of Brexit. But please, Let's not let it be a Norwegian form of Brexit. Let's make sure it's the right Brexit. That's why the Brexit Party are fighting this campaign. That's why your candidates here need real help and support over the course of the next couple of weeks. And who knows, if we establish a bridgehead there in Parliament, we will get what 17.4 million people voted for and what they deserve to get. Thank you very much.
I'm sure you'll agree he's on absolute top-notch form, which is what we like to see. Now, we do have a few questions from you. We're going to start off with Steve from York. Nigel, do you trust Boris, especially when you've given him the Tory seats? Of course, the Brexit Party not standing in the Tory-held seats.
Well, I think, the truth of it is that in the south of England and the southwest of England, if he'd stuck to the deal as it was, and not said he was going to go a lot further. If we'd stood against them in the south of England, I think the Liberal Democrats would have won quite a lot of those seats. I genuinely believe that, and that would have been self-defeating. So I took a decision, which was we've shifted him. I will put party before country, in this case, in the south and southwest of England. And I believe that was the right thing to do. But as I say, ironically, the danger is they now split our vote in areas like Hull, where we clearly are the challenger. Do I trust Boris Johnson? No. Look, let's be honest. Let's be honest. The Conservative Party have been the party of European Union, of the European project, since the early 1960s. And they campaigned for Remain as a party in the referendum. The only reason they're saying what they're saying is because we have dragged them there reluctantly, kicking and screaming. Yeah. They don't really want to do this at all, but we've put them into this position. So rather than trusting them, let's make sure we can hold them to account. If that works, we'll get the Brexit we want. Yeah.
Got a question here from Pam from York. I'm going to ask this one to Michelle, actually, if you wouldn't mind, Michelle. I've read today that Labour are changing their strategy in Leave areas. What is your opinion? This is the sort of the new strategy they're going for, apparently, where they're going to try and convince Labour Leave voters that they really do care and understand. What do you make of it?
What I make of this is one simple word, which is afterthought. What is happening is that Labour is seeing the polls, and the polls are saying that Conservatives are stealing a march on Labour and beating them. And what Labour is now looking to do is change its strategy in order to secure power. And what that tells me is very simple. They do not care about us Brexiteers. They do not care about frequently ignoring us. In fact, they are happy to do so. They have been distracting themselves talking about billionaires and all of these other things in order to deflect and distract from the key issue that is in a lot of people's minds, which is democracy and Brexit. Now, because they've probably realised that actually, maybe we do need to listen to these people over there, then it wouldn't surprise me that now they've changed tact. It wouldn't surprise me if all of a sudden, en masse, we see multiple activists being bussed into this city. And it is wrong. It is just demonstrative of what we've been telling you. They do not care. They do not care that they are ignoring the Brexit vote. They care only about gaining power. And if this change of strategy doesn't show you that, I don't know what will. Because if they did care, they would firstly have not ignored us in the first place, and secondly, they would have acknowledged the importance of democracy and Brexit the moment that they started this election campaign. It wouldn't have been an afterthought and a strategy change when we've only got 14 days to go. So I beg you all, do not be fooled. Do not be fooled by it. We represent you. We will not be flip-flopping around on issues. We will not be reacting to polls and telling you this, that and the other. We believe in democracy. We always have, and we always will. And I say, in summary, to the change of strategy by Labour, an afterthought and simply not good enough.
And Nigel, what do you think? Do you think that is the Corbyn charge into the Labour Leave areas towards the end, is it going to be a game changer in the election?
No, I mean, look, I think the truth of it is they realise that they're now fighting a defensive battle. They know they can't win the election. This is now a defensive strategy to try and hold seats that they've held for decades. It's almost an acceptance that they've lost the election. You know, their manifesto launch was not the success that it was back in 2017. Since then, they've come out pledging tens of billions. Everything's going to be free. It's wonderful. Free iPhones. Who knows what next? And no, they're fighting a defensive strategy, and they want to try in Leave seats to get the argument off Brexit with ranting conspiracy theories about the National Health Service and what Donald Trump might do, despite what the Donald said on this. And no, they're in trouble. That's what this change of direction signals.
Well, if the Labour Party are worried, it looks like they are. I think they've got every right to be. Now, last question, Ben from Hull. Should you change the system so you could recall an MP for incompetence like in a business, Nigel?
Oh, I think recalling MPs for incompetence would mean perpetual recalls and wouldn't work. Look, what I do think is, and I haven't talked about it today because I'm a little bit pressed for time, but to me, Brexit is not the end of what we started back in 2016. Brexit should be the beginning of a genuine political revolution that is needed in this country, so low as our trust become in our institutions and the way in which they operate. Already in this election, we're hearing of the most extraordinary abuses of the postal vote system, for argument's sake. So look, you know, I want to get rid of a House of Lords that now looks to be corrupt and out of date. I want to make sure that we look at our constitution and codify it so that in future, if a referendum gets passed, it has to be enacted and it's no longer advisory. And I absolutely think on recall, as I say, incompetence on its own wouldn't be enough. There's too many of them. But I do think this. I do think if an MP changes parties, there should be the ability for the electors in that constituency to recall them for a by-election.
So there's really only one question you need to answer. Are you ready to help change politics for good? Let's get the banners in the air. Get the banners in the air. Yeah. Hey, there we go. Go on, stand up, stand up, stand up, stand up. Brilliant. Hull, you've been brilliant. Thank you for your support. Have a safe journey home, and thank you once again. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Hey.